Welcome. We're just going to do a Tuesday, July 12th City Council work session. I'll need to follow the agenda first.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
That was Robin.
Robin? Okay.
Yep.
We are technically, we're kind of waiting for Nancy and Bruce to come on Zoom. So I'm going to go kind of slow a little bit, but first I'll just go to our normal beginning with our public comment. If there is anybody in the house or in Zoom that would like to make a public comment, you're welcome to.
We have one on Zoom signed up.
It's the same.
Let's go for Mickey.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Mickey, go ahead.
I wanted to make a very brief comment on item 7 in your agenda, which is the proposed revisions for the camping code. I understand the background for this and why the city needs to change. I noticed there's a 20-foot buffer currently around residential areas. And unless there was some legal reason not to, I'm wondering if that could be expanded to maybe twice that, 40 or 50 feet. You know, as a mother of young children, I do worry about our family's safety and our kids' safety. I do appreciate we need to support people who are without homes, but I also want us to remember to keep our residents safe. That was it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else want to raise their hand?
Rock, are you going to talk?
Yeah. Well, go ahead, bro, right there. Here, there, do it.
My name is Rock Wickham. I live at 4001 South Hemlock here in Canon Beach. I'm here tonight because I heard that you guys were looking at, what to do with the Canon Beach Food Pantry. And I would just like to make a recommendation, actually a plea, that we be allowed to maintain our residents there at the old school. It works out very well for a lot of our clients. It has privacy. They can take the bus from Tolovana down and pick up their, food and stuff and take the bus back home. We put a lot of time and effort and some money into improving the interior. Granted, the exterior needs a little bit of work, but it is a very functional place for us and readily accessible from a lot of our clients. So that's my statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nancy.
Nancy Littell, 3631 South Hemlock. I echo everything that Rock said. I want to say that since now the construction has started on the gymnasium, and we're working copacetically with them, and they have their fences up, and if somebody needs something, everybody has been very friendly about taking care of making sure that everybody's needs are met. That's what I have. Anybody else want to talk?
Hi, this is Lila Wickham, and I live at 4001 South Hemlock also. And I would like to advocate for moving the food pantry for a number of reasons. I've been spending minimal amount of time volunteering for the food pantry, but my husband spends 1,000 hours a year. His colleagues spend hundreds of hours a year. And I'm not sure if everybody remembers this, but the food pantry had to move out of the Bible church. The food pantry had to become a 501c3 when the community church was worried about the liability. The food pantry workers have to box up all the food. It's a whole different system since COVID, and it's a lot more complicated and cumbersome for the workers. And the community, we have an 18% poverty rate in Canon Beach. The community needs food. It's one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs on the lowest level. And I just don't think that the food pantry workers or their recipients need more stress. They're already under stress because rent is increased, food has increased, gas has increased. People need stability, not change right now. Thank you.
Sam, could I ask, I don't like to back and forth, but, will all of you be available during the discussion if we have questions?
Sure.
Okay,
I'll stay. I just want to make one more comment, if I may. Sorry. We would like to invite you all to come down to the food pantry every Wednesday. We're there from about 11:30 until 5:30 or so. And we'd like to show you around, show you the inside, show you how we process, the request for food there, and show you what the layout is. So please come down and see us.
thank you.
Since it is the first item, and since Nancy's now with us again, I think we'll jump, unless there's any other comments, I'm gonna, one last call for comments. Okay, we'll jump right into our first item, which is the food pantry. Bruce is not on yet.
So Karen, are you on? Can you hear us?
You bet.
So Bruce didn't make it on Zoom yet. Do you want to present the food pantry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Go ahead.
You're welcome. Thanks. The discussion is a follow-up to a recent meeting I think we had back in March where Bruce discussed with you the physical conditions of the current food pantry building. And council had asked us during that discussion to investigate if there were locations other than the old school location where the food pantry could be located. So staff just did a rough high-level preliminary review, and that's what we're here to report on tonight. Basically, the pros and cons of what we have looked at so far. Before I take you through the attachments, I'll just continue the summary here. Some of the variables discussed are outside of the normal scope of operations of a food pantry, but the relocation may have implications for outside functions such as emergency management, food supply. At this point, we're operating from about a 20,000 foot level, and potential sites are discussed only in general terms. We're requesting council to provide us with direction on which sites you consider viable, and staff can do a deeper dive in terms of cost and zoning considerations. Several months ago, we were able to get pricing on a new modular building about the size that is comparable to what the current facility, and the estimate was approximately $300,000. There's a little doubt that cost has gone up. Utility costs will vary based on the availability at the different locations and the distance to the connection point. Appliance furnishings costs will depend on how much of the current equipment is reusable. So if you will look at the attachments that have been provided to you in your packet, I'll start with the current food bank location. I mean, I think we all recognize the benefits there that some of the food pantry sponsors and committee members have eloquently pointed out. It does provide a lot of confidentiality. The ease of access is a given. They have everything they need. They've got the sewer connection, they've got water, there's a bathroom there. There's really no downside unless it was something that had to do with the future use of the school. Comparatively, the next site that we looked at was the Talivana cache site. That brings a lot of benefits to the consideration, being that there is power at that site now. Rick Hudson, our emergency manager, just completed the task of working with specific power to be able to get the power to that location. There's water nearby. There is no sewer at that location, but there are sewer facilities that we could tap into. It would have to go across Highway 101, obviously. The access is easy. It is secure. We could do a one-way in and one-way out type of a loop, similar to what they have now. Obviously, there's confidentiality for the users there, similar to what they have today. And then obviously the benefits from a emergency management, where at that particular location, it would become part of the community's food source post-event. The next location we looked at was Echo Cache Site. The site prep for that is a little more extensive. The power is in progress as we speak. Rick's working on that. There are no water and no sewer facilities nearby. The ease of access is moderate. It is not in a secured location. So if we have concerns of break-ins or things like that, that site would need to be looked at from that perspective. There would be confidentiality for the users, and obviously the benefits for emergency management would be the same, being at a site. The next location that was considered was the RV park. The site prep is minimal. All utilities are in place. The ease of access is moderate. We all know the congestion in the RV park at most times of the year is quite tight. There would be no confidentiality for the users. And it is near our satellite EOC and our Red Cross satellite locations. So the benefit from an emergency management perspective would be in play at that particular location. The last location that we looked at that was recommended was the area by the recycle and the wastewater treatment plant, similar to the area where the RV parking is. You'll see on the maps, I've indicated arrows at these locations that we're talking about. The site is minimal site prep. All utilities are nearby. The ease of access is about the same as the previous location where we have the summer congestion. There would be no confidentiality for the users, and that particular location is in the tsunami zone. So from an emergency management perspective, we may not gain anything in that regard. So those were the locations that we did a high level look. Any questions from council based on those locations as a start for consideration?
Questions? All seem fairly complete. Thank you, Karen.
I have a question.
Shoot.
Has there been any look at how much it might cost? I know that CETA has done at least a preliminary review of the problems of the current location for the food bank, the building situation there. Has there been any look other than looking at another mobile building? Is there any look at how much it might cost to repair the building that currently exists at the current site?
That was brought to you in March. That's triggered this discussion to begin with. We had received bids for the roof and the siding, and 5 of the windows that are failing. I apologize. I'm obviously not in City Hall, so I don't have that number with me. But I think that's what triggered council to ask us at the expense of what it would be to repair that. Did it make sense to just get a whole new building or to go ahead and move forward in the repair? Jennifer, can you help me on that? Was it comparable to the quote that we got for the new unit, or was it more or less? I don't recall.
I thought the repairs were at least 100,000. And that's why we decided to look at the new potential building. But I'm
Okay.
I'm looking to see if I can find it real quick.
And of course, that's been some time, so we'd have to update those quotes.
Karen, do we have any cost estimates for moving into any of those locations? I mean, if you're talking a $300,000 building a mobile building to move into, and then also if you're doing Tolovana, you have to do the sewer situation across the highway. So do we have any cost of comparisons at all on anything?
Yeah. We don't. I didn't get too aggressive on this until I got feedback from you about the locations, or if I had overlooked a location you'd like us to consider. But that would be the obvious next step, would be to get some estimates on the utilities and or the site prep, because that would be probably your greatest expense.
Okay, thank you.
Many of these have utilities nearby and some do not. You can see in the spreadsheet there, some of them don't require much site prep. Maybe there's a foundation we could sit on. So that was the next layer that we would want to dive into. If I would like to ask that we either reduce the number of locations that we're looking at. It would make it a lot easier and more cost effective for me to get bids on this. But if you're happy with all of these, I can go to that next layer.
Okay, thank you.
I did find the quote. It was back in March. It was $98,000, $98,500 in March.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. I could easily jump in and say Echo is just not a viable location because of the slope and all the other stuff. That's just not working. And I would have a easy doubt with the recycling just because of this time of year. I walked the dogs over there today and I couldn't get a dog through the traffic. So
Exactly.
that would just make it really difficult for folks to access. The other thing is, my sense of it when we were talking about this is not that there is any urgency. We're going to stick with where we are as long as that building lasts. I think, so I'm not seeing any sudden change. That what concerned me was the condition of the building. For a portable building that's been there 50 years almost, it's going to fail. And the more it fails, the more it's going to cost to repair it. And so my sense is that we need to consider looking at this more as a backup plan. So if something happens to that building or it just is not viable anymore, how could the food pantry operate? If we don't have some facility somewhere else or something that we could say, okay, here's our backup plan, let's put that into action. Granted, the current location is part of that. We might build new there. We might bring in another portable. That's a future decision. But I think having a narrow list of possible places to always have in our back pocket is something that is just a good idea while we're still using the current site. So that's my comment.
Mr. Mayor, would you guys like to talk about the sites that are in play and eliminate any or add any before we do any other cost estimates?
Well, definitely eliminate Echo.
I
Okay.
agree with that.
I think the only two viable ones myself are Tolovana Cache Site and the RV Park. The RV Park is a little more challenging for different reasons than Tolovana is, but Tolovana just makes a whole lot of sense in the fact that it's got a really good traffic flow, and it adds to other situations that we're looking into. But again, I'm still thinking of this as a backup plan, not a initial plan.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Go ahead, Nancy.
I would still like to see something, some kind of a review of the art recycling area. I know that it presents problems with parking, but I'd still like to see a review of that. I have a little bit of problem with the Tolovana site because of I know mass transportation. Do we have a bus that stops at Tolovana? Because I think some people who go to the food bank need mass transportation, but I may be wrong on that.
Barb, do we know that?
We do have people that come and take the bus.
Okay.
to and from. So we do need to have the access for them, for that service.
Yeah, I don't know if Route 21, our local bus loop, still, they always go all the way down to end of town, but I don't know if they go out on the highway. But if that's designed, as Tango has a loop built into it, so it wouldn't be hard to reconfigure the bus route for the local bus route, not the big one that goes to Seaside. But to do that loop and then come back wouldn't be hard for them.
And we do have clients that take the bus back to Seaside. They work in Canon Beach. They finish their shift, they come to the food pantry, and then they take the bus. for food.
Okay, well, that's a consideration.
How do food pantry, staff respond to once the Cannon Beach Elementary School is up and functioning as it is designed to eventually be? It seems to me like the whole privacy aspect won't be there anymore.
Just don't schedule anything on Wednesday.
I don't think there's anything anybody can promise.
No, I'm joking. We are always a flexible group, and I think we'll figure it out.
Okay,
We figure out lots of things.
all right.
We really only have clients on site for 3 to 4 hours.
Not even that.
2 hours and 15 minutes.
2 hours and 15 minutes,
Okay,
but then we have the lines, waiting to get in, and the ones that come after we close. But yeah, it's not a huge chunk of time. Volunteers are down there quite often,
Yes.
and I don't see a conflict with that at all. But I think there's a way we can work together.
Sam, some of the urgency I am seeing is that the FIBA has asked us to come up with the decisions so that they can get on with their design work. And if it is the decision of the council to say that, yes, the food pantry will stay there, then they'll have something to work with. I'm not sure I'm there yet.
I guess what I'm working with was our original or what you call it, but what we asked of them did not have that within it.
Exactly.
So I'm comfortable with sticking with that and saying that will be phase or whenever that happens or whatever phase we get into as far as the entire site. And they'll just have to work around it.
But that's making a decision to leave it there.
Yeah.
In response to Brandon. I know staff's looking for some recommendations. I would agree. The Echo cache site should be off the table. I see nothing feasible about that site. The current food bank obviously meets all the current requirements. I mean, it's there and operating. I get that. The Tolovana cache site would be my preference if we had infrastructure already in place. I'm concerned about a couple of things there. One is getting the infrastructure in place, the sewer, and ingress and egress on the 101 and no bus service. So those things to be addressed. So it leaves really, in my mind, the recycle center, in which you'd lose half a dozen parking spaces probably permanently with the building location, and the other dozen parking spaces on Wednesday afternoon, in which it's on a Wednesday, you can block it off. There's good ingress, egress, there's good connection to utilities, and the confidentiality, I see the people parking there out of towners. I don't see that as a major issue, but maybe others do. The other feasible site would be the RV park. I spent time there today, actually, trying to figure out where you would put that amount, that size of building, how you would get traffic in and traffic out. Certainly doable. I think you'd lose up to 3 RV spots. You would have the whole issue of getting people in there when RVs are checking. Well, they don't generally check in that time, but they do come in and they take a lot of space. The only feasible spot I saw were really where the playground is. And I saw kids playing there today, so I don't think that's what you want to do. The only really open space is right out on the west side of the general store, and that big open grassy area, and might want to remove the EV charging station and the propane tank somewhere to make that where you can get in and out. But it's certainly very visible in that location. The bus service is there. All the utilities are there, and it benefits emergency management as a food site. So I said that is a viable location. The recycle center, I think, is viable. Tolovana cash site, not so much. Echo cash site, certainly not. The current food bank site, obviously it works. There's a little distance from the bus stop, but that's apparently not an issue. My overall concern on all of this is his responsibility and who's going to pay for whatever we decide to do. Relocation, rebuilding, replacing, $100,000 to $300,000 and maybe more has to be figured out how that's going to be accomplished. Leaving it as is, continuing to rot away, is the least expensive in the short run. It's the least expensive in the long run. So if you want to eliminate something, in my opinion, it'd be the Echo and Tolovana cash sites. Continue to evaluate the RV park and the recycle parking lot. And think about longevity of the current site, what you might be able to do with that.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something?
Sure, go ahead, Karen.
On the Tolovana site, Rick Hudson and I discussed the concept of a holding tank that would be serviced similar to a portable restroom, how it would be serviced regularly instead of going through the expense of extending sewer across the highway. So that's something I can bring more information back to you for that particular site. Also, if we select some sites that are complementary to emergency management, there may be grants that we are eligible for that would help us make this happen.
Thank you, Karen. I was about to ask that same question and you answered it. I appreciate that.
One time we had some limited discussion on the sewer not running a line, but actually having septic in that area rather than porta johns or a holding tank. Maybe a holding tank is part of the septic idea.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Has that received any further investigation? Certainly as an emergency center, where people would congregate in a truly a serious emergency, we're going to need sanitation facilities, either holding tank septic systems that can be pumped, or maybe by that time we have sewer lines across the highway. But if that's a feasible solution, then I would add the Tolovana cache site to that list of the other three.
Rick is exploring that just for our greater emergency management plans for the cache sites. And so this was something that we could couple along with that. Like I say, if we could show the benefit to the overall community relative to an additional food source, I think there's grants. There's a community that just recently got a grant for their food pantry for similar purposes. So that's what piqued my interest in trying to pursue that, if you guys were interested in doing that.
You might get grant money, are you saying for just the infrastructure or the sewer system? Or are you talking about for the building itself?
Well, there's two different grants that we could pursue, and I'd have to dig in to see what all the elements are as far as the qualifiers. But the other community that I was looking at, they actually got a new food pantry and located near their emergency management location. They got a grant to do that. So I think we would have a couple of different options here. I just have to talk to those folks and just see what the qualifiers are so that I can come back and give you accurate information. It's definitely worth exploring to see what our options are financially.
Okay, Lila, you had a question?
I had a question and comment, and the first question is, I must have missed something, because if it costs $100,000 to fix what's currently working, why would you spend $300,000 to move something somewhere else?
It was only to fix the roof and some windows. That didn't address the entire building.
I think it also included the siding.
Yeah.
It's just something that we've kind of been aware of for other situations, is that fixing always means more fixing down the road. So it's a long-term expense compared to building new, just dumps all the cash up front and then you build new, and it should last for a while. So yeah, there is costs that we have to pencil out and figure out what the differences are between bunch of fixes compared to new.
And placing it at the Echo.
Is, I just had a comment about Tolovana. I access Tolovana often, and I never access it coming from the north, because those big trucks behind you do not expect you to be turning left. I always come in from the south, and without a lane for Tolovana, it just seems really dangerous to me for the pantry participants. And that's just, maybe my paranoia.
I agree with that.
Forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. I don't know what we're,
I have an observation about the recycling center area, was that is the exact location where, when I was on the planning commission, we voted to tear that down and turn it into a parking lot. There at one time was a structure there. In that exact location was the original recycling center.
that's right.
Yeah, I was thinking again on long term, if we're looking at locating facilities and we have the option to locate them outside the tsunami inundation zone, that's preferable to locating in the zone. And let's say the RV park and the Tolovana sites would fulfill that.
And we can always keep our eyes open for something else, because you never know. Sure.
I'm wondering if a feasibility project has been done. You mentioned the building failing, and the building's gonna fail quickly if we don't replace the roof and the siding. If underneath the building, we've had that looked at, and the foundation of the building, we're in there every week, and inside, it's great for us. So if those things were replaced, it would last a long time. It seems as if I have a bit of a construction background, but if that has been looked at on the foundation of the building.
Again, all we're going with, what I'm going with is what the city staff has looked at and the little CETA analysis that they did just for what they were going with. Jennifer needs your name and address.
Okay, thank you. It's Tina Vincent, 191 East Madison Street.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Yeah. Again, this has come up because what we're doing with the school building. I don't know, Robin or Nancy, if you have anything you want to add, you're welcome to. With that,
Yes, I did want to say that I respect the people who are working at the food bank. And I hope the reason we were kind of looking at this was to open up that space when we were doing our planning. But we can also, I think, work with that space. And I do love the tie-in of the food bank and the garden and cooking facilities to enhance learning how to work with different foods. So I guess that's where I'm kind of landing.
Nancy?
Well, I tend to agree with Robin on all of that. The idea, that's one reason we talked about having a kitchen in the schools to maybe help teach classes to some of the people who are using the food pantry. And I also agree that I really would like to see the review of the recycling center. And I do like the idea of the RV park, putting it in where the electric station is right now. But I do like the idea of being able to tie the current building in with the school. I mean, I realize that that's going to have to be different funding because it's not tourist related, but it is a good location at that point with the garden and the kitchen.
Okay. With that, I'd like to move on unless there's any more comments. Okay. Thank you all. We
Yes,
will
thank you.
probably talk about this more, especially as CETA starts continuing their process. So at the school.
So, Mr.
Let's move.
Clarification, is there any action you want staff to take at this point?
I think we've eliminated at least one of the spots on the list. Other than that, not seeing a whole lot of action. If anybody else is. Let's.
Well, I think some, maybe another look at the repairs necessary or the cost
Just going to say that. Mike. Thank you.
repair and bring the current food bank up to, don't mean this derogatory way, but in a presentable
Okay,
outward appearance. It's going to be right there in the middle of the visitors and event center. And I feel very uncomfortable having a rundown double wide sitting there in the middle of our park. So at a minimum, that's got to be dressed up. I guess a little more an update on the Tolovana cache site sanitation facilities and the feasibility of that.
Okay.
With the RV park, I guess I'd just like to know what staff thinks would be a reasonable location for a food bank. The RV park's big, and I don't know what you might have had in mind. So a clarification on where in the RV park staff feels would be a viable location.
I think initially it was back by the pump station only because the RV park tends to rent those spaces last just because of the sound of the generator. So it would be, you know, probably the most agreeable to them to give up as far as spaces, but I can talk to the management staff and see if their opinion on that has changed.
Yeah, I looked at that as well, and it seemed that probably give up 2 slots, maybe 3.
Yeah.
More concerning would be the ingress and egress, the traffic cycling through, and I couldn't see the obvious way was driving through the RV park, but if there something I missed there, whether you come in and go back out the same way, or if you loop through one of the loops in the park. But
Yeah, I think the access is definitely the challenge for that particular site.
I think, I don't really want to go into a whole lot of details on this, but I think what I would do if I were looking at it is that area just north of the lodge, from where the electric charging station is. There's a large green area there. And I
Yes.
would all the access off of Elkland, so you don't have traffic going through the RV park. It would be a simple pull in and pull out kind of access. If we go into that kind of detail, I think there's several options that we could look at. Again, I agree with everybody. I would like to get some information on a little more detailed information on the building that we have.
I'd like some ideas on how this would be funded.
Okay. All right. Maybe I
Okay.
can talk to Sita about the cosmetics of the existing building, and then I can update the bids regarding the roof, the siding and the windows. And see how that would suffice. If we were to eliminate that building altogether and bring in a new modular, there would be some site prep that would be required based on what's under it now. So there is some minimal site prep that would have to occur. So I'll work on those things that you gave me, and I won't be aggressive about it. If you want me to speed it up a little bit, give me some feedback. Otherwise, I will work to tighten up that information and bring it back to you in the months to come.
Great. Thank you, Karen.
One thing, if I could just mention, is CETA has worked with food banks before, and they might have some ideas about funding and the inner workings of all of that. So I think we've got a really good person at the helm to help us.
I agree, Robin. That's one of their stakeholder feedbacks was they were really, really experienced with grant information and pursuit. So I agree 100%.
Okay, we're moving on now. Next item. Utility relief request. Karen, you want to update us on that?
Yes, thank you. I know I have in the room there our Public Works Committee Chair, Janae, is present. So if Janae, you want to move up to the table there in case council has some questions I need your support on. What we're bringing to you tonight is, if you recall, that back in February of 2020, the city entered into a financing contract with the Oregon Infrastructure Finance Authority to secure loan funding through the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund. And the balance was $624,150 was the loan allowed to the city for replacing our aging meter modules throughout town and upgrading them to be able to be compatible with the updated advanced metering and analytics software, AMA software that we lovingly refer to as on water. And this loan is eligible for $322,075 of principal forgiveness at an interest rate of 1%. The new meter module software, Ion Water, provides a web-based portal for customers to access hourly water usage activity, usage graphs, and alerts for potential leaks. Property owners can monitor their water usage, receive leak alerts in real time, decreasing wasted water, and reduce the need for additional assistance from staff. This water usage monitoring tool is free for all utility customers. And after the city entered into the loan agreement, the water division staff began the lengthy process of replacing all of the meter modules citywide. Significant supply chain delays over this past year have made it challenging to complete this project, with the final module part still on back order. This staff report was written in May. We were delayed bringing it to you. That particular final module has been replaced in June. So the project is in essence complete. Public Works Committee, to prepare for the impending completion of the project, began discussing the city's existing utility relief policy and form in April of 2021. The committee explored various options and discussed the current policy and the proposed changes in detail. The goal of the policy change is to encourage water conservation via the new Ion water system. With the help of staff, the committee drafted up a new resolution, policy and utility request form for council to review, which is part of your packet. I would also like to recognize Jan Siebert-Warman, who is an unofficial part of our Public Works Committee. She has come to almost every single meeting and she has really helped us stay focused on water conservation. I think the committee did a great job in really defining the expectation that the city made capital investment in upgrading our meters and providing this tool for our customers. And in return, the expectation is that they get their leaks fixed timely and that they use the tool to monitor their usage, as well as set up alerts for leaks so that they avoid wasting water and experiencing damage to their homes, which we see quite frequently in the second homeowners property. So if council doesn't have any questions, I would ask that they provide Public Works Committee and staff some direction on the proposed changes in front of you tonight.
Granted.
Karen,
Yes.
what is the current rate of folks signing up for and I'm sorry, I can't find the name of the program, but to have the alerts sent?
That's okay. It's Ion Water, and we're currently at 36% take rate. And after council reviews our draft policy, the plan is to do a big communications blast in the newspaper, the city bulletin, Facebook, and advertise a workshop that we're going to open. The committee is going to help staff. We'll open City Hall in the day and evening opportunity for any community members that have not been able to sign up so far. We will help them get signed up, show them how to use the tool to increase that take rate. Our goal is 50%. There hasn't been any other community that has the Ion Water tool that has been able to get quite as high as we've been able to get. So I think doing a communications blast and just educating folks or reminding people that have purchased homes and they've just forgotten to get themselves set up in all the chaos of moving will really move that percentage up significantly.
Aaron,
Thank you.
can I ask a question? This is Robin. I remember a time when some elk jumped into my yard and they broke the line. And I'm just concerned, and it was kind of a big deal, but nobody could figure out how it happened for a while. I'm just concerned that we have a strict 36-month period for people to be eligible for a possible adjustment. Is there a way to kind of temper that so that it's something where you didn't really have any control over it at all? Or do you think that 36 month is fair?
That's a really good question and point you're making, Robin. I think the committee, and Janae, feel free to speak up. Doug kind of led the effort for the committee in doing a lot of benchmarking against other communities to see what they have in place for their leak forgiveness, if you will, how often they let people submit leak requests each year, how they incent people to make the repairs instead of letting their leaks go on for an extended period of time. And in situations like what you described, Robin, where it's beyond the homeowner's control that something like that would happen, and even including irrigation failures. So they really took a deep dive and did a great comparison amongst a lot of other communities and brought it back and discussed it as a team. If that 36 months is something you'd like them to take another look at, we can certainly do that. Janae, you have anything to add on that?
And I just want to say we spend literally thousands of hours discussing this issue. We compare to the cities, we compare what we've had here in the city, and that's the whole committee came up with this decision. So it's not something that we took very lightly at all. We really spend a lot of time working on this. So.
They spent the better part of last year just
Yes.
really getting their arms around it so that they felt that they would put something out that honored Jan's desire of making people aware of how much water they're using. There's lots of folks that think our water is an endless supply because it comes from a natural spring. And so the expectation of water conservation, Jan and others in the community have asked us to bring that up to a more significant awareness, but also be fair to people. So the committee worked really hard to find that balance. And like I say, looking at other communities to see if we were too strict, not strict enough, and giving people what they needed to be able to, conservers of water, if you will.
Nancy?
I had a question about the requirement to show receipts about from the plumber on the repairs that were made, when it also says in the policy that you are not going to refund any money for any parts or repairs. So I'm curious as to why they have to show receipts for it.
The committee didn't make a change on that, Nancy. That's been the policy that was in place previously. And it's a matter of ensuring that the leak or the breakage was addressed. And so people typically provide their receipts from a plumber or landscaper or whatever the leak might have been, that it has been addressed and wasn't just Johnny homeowner, that it was a professional getting it repaired and it's been dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, one other question. Will the Public Works Water Department still be as vigilant as they always have been about notifying homeowners of
Absolutely.
leaks?
Yep. I don't think we'll ever tear that out of Daryl. He's the most super service-oriented guy on my team, and he'll continue to be that way. You'll still see the leak messages on the bills. The beauty of this is someone doesn't have to wait 30 days to determine that they have a leak under their house or in the walls or under their bathroom floor causing damage. They could set up an alert that tells them within 24 hours that they've got water running somewhere.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Karen.
You bet. Any other questions?
I don't see any, so sounds like this is a go, Karen.
Excellent. Thank you, Janae and Jan.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Karen, for doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
Let's just get the word out. That
Yeah,
communication blast is going to be very, very important.
You bet. I will be announcing my admin hire here soon. And as soon as I have that person in place, we are going to hit the ground running, get all this ready. And our water team will be at the workshop helping us as well as the Public Works Committee. So it'll be some fun sessions.
great. Okay, move on to our next item. Forewarn. Come on up, Rick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about Orwarn, and I'll try to summarize the staff report here. Following the impacts of Hurricane Katrina, FEMA was not able to regulate the utility recovery in the areas, and they were overwhelmed by the ability to effectively coordinate the initial response. Orwarn, or Oregon Wastewater Agency Response Network, WARN, was basically established to participate and receive mutual aid assistance with this agreement for sharing emergency resources among members statewide. This shares personnel and resources to deal with man-made and natural disasters. And it fills the gap in the interim between the time any kind of real emergency can be established, whether it's local or regionalized. Staff does recommend that council gives us the approval to sign the agreement to become members of Orwarn Network and Resources. Before you guys talk about that, there is over 170 participants statewide in this program, so we're not alone.
How are we doing in the county?
Very good. You have almost every county. We're almost the only ones in the county who are not on the Orwarn list.
I think it's awesome.
That's good.
Anybody else? Yeah, Rick.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Parks and Community Services, Community Grant Award Recommendations. I'll leave this one.
Bruce is here.
Bruce, you on now? You can raise your little hand. Bruce?
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
We can hear you
Okay.
now.
Great. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so I wasn't quite keeping up. Jen, is this one that you can handle where you are on?
Yeah, I can do this one. So this is our we're going to be presenting you the recommendations from the Parks Committee for Community Grants. Barb is here. If anyone has any questions, she's our Parks Committee Chair. And this year we had 16 applicants. And Barb can answer any questions.
Any question?
Anything at all.
I got a question for you.
That's all I can. I don't have any questions. So anybody else?
This is Robin. I just wanted to say I've listened to the whole discussion. I thought it was very thoughtful. Everyone really worked together to try and choose the right reason to do what they did. And it was very impressive meeting.
Thank you, Robin.
So the plan for these grants, if everyone, if council's good with it, sorry, long day, you would adopt it at the August meeting.
Right. That's, I see here there is a motion, but this is all just recommended.
Correct.
Correct.
That's what the committee is recommending to you.
Yes.
No, I've read through them as much as I could, and I think obviously the committee has done its usual job of fair and equitable disbursement.
I would like to say thank you to the city and city council. When you look in the paper and see other cities' grant awards, first off, they're not giving away $90,000. So we appreciate it. It's a real joy to listen to the presentations, and it's a great thing that Canon Beach does. So thank you.
One of the more enjoyable parts when I go to a conference is to be able to say that we give out nearly 200,000, because when you include the TAC money as grants, it is kind of a thing to tout when we get together. Okay, I think we're good to go then. I'm not hearing any other comments.
Okay.
Thanks, Barb. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Work, Jennifer. We will go right to the Tourism and Arts Commission TAC funding.
So this one, Tourism and Arts Commission, we have the chair, Steve Sinclair, on Zoom, if you guys have any questions. This year, there were 11 applicants. And the committee did leave a reserve in the fund balance. That was something important for them to start working on building one up, and they were able to do that.
Yes. Again, I think we're well done, and we're getting good at this part. It's taken several years to hammer out a few wrinkles, but I think we're finally doing what we're always doing. Unless anybody else has comment. Steve, you want to go ahead and say something? Steve, you got your hand up.
Wait, it's hung up or something.
Oh, he's there.
Are you there, Steve?
Gone. Well, audio's not working for some reason. I don't think council has any comments.
The only question I have is that, is there an ultimate goal that they'd like to reach a reserve number, or did they just want to have a percentage of available monies held in reserve?
I don't know what the committee is thinking, but I think the council goal was to eventually have.
There's Steve, might be back on here now.
Are you back on, Steve?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am.
There you go. Okay, we can hear you now.
Perfect. As I was getting changed to a panelist, my computer froze, so I'm now on my phone. I didn't hear all of Brandon's question, but if you want to repeat it, I'd be happy to answer.
Absolutely, Steve. Is there an ultimate number that the TAC committee would like to have to hold in reserve, or would you just like to have a percentage of the available monies every year to hold in reserve?
That's a great question. We haven't set a specific amount as a target for reserve. If you look back, we're spending we have allocated in that, I'll say that 90% to 93% range. On a year-by-year basis. It's kind of fluctuated right around there. So while we haven't set a specific amount, we've kind of been consistent with how much of the the funds that have been requested, we have allocated.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. So I don't know if there were any questions, but I just thought I'd say that the committee met on June 20th and we conducted interviews. We had 11 organizations we had 11 requests for funding. As you saw, the funding requests were in excess of $313,000. We had funds available of $481,000. We ended up, of that 313,000 requests, we recommended a total amount of 292,000, which is 93% of the funds, or of the funds requested. I don't know if you've all looked at the spreadsheet, but of the TAC committee members that were in attendance, 2 committee members had conflicts. Greg Bell had conflicts with Blush Lux and WOW. Myself, I had conflicts with WOW and Sabre Cannon Beach. And so because of those conflicts, we were not eligible to make recommendations for those various requests. And then, like I said, we funded to 93%.
Steve, this
Yes.
is Robin.
Hi, Robin.
I've had people ask me if a program's been going on for a long time, does the TAC look at that as their goal should become self-sufficient at some point? Or are you critical of just continuing a program forever?
Well, that's a great question. We talk about that all the time. There are some events that are never going to be self-sufficient. Get Lit is never going to be self-sufficient. They're just, some of them are moving towards self-sufficiency, like Sabre was moving towards self-sufficiency before COVID, and they had to completely reorganize their format. And so it's kind of set them back a little bit, but their expectation is they will be self-sufficient. The Coaster Theater, their request was for funding for a special event. And so those funds are not coming from their general funds. So different organizations are using the funds differently. And we see some of the organizations and those events just will not be, due to a lack of numbers.
Okay.
The artist program is not going to be self-sufficient because they're bringing in artists and they're teaching art classes, and it's classes for kids. It's not going to be self-sufficient financially. So some of them have been on a path towards that, and others just won't be.
Thank you.
Just to throw it out there real quick, during the interview process, Steve asked every applicant about their interest in using the Cannon Beach Elementary School as a potential site for events in the future. And I want to say the vast majority, I think only 1 or 2, because of the type of event they had, said it wouldn't be applicable to them, but pretty much everyone was interested in using it in some form for their events.
Yeah, Jennifer, that's a great point. Some of the organizations have a fit with the classroom. Just looking at the top, the Cannon Beach Arts Association, that with the artist program, the classrooms would be something that they could use. But then other events like the WOW, Blush Lux, that would be something that Get Lit. Those would be different organizations and events that would use the gymnasium.
Cool. Okay.
Recording.
Wow. Yeah, that was interesting.
That was me. Sorry about that. All of a sudden, my computer unfroze, and I had you on 2 devices. You were in stereo.
Thanks for the excitement, Steve.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so like community grants, this will go back to you in August for a vote.
Right. So as long as there's no other concerns or questions, we will see that in August. And vote on it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve.
Okay, we'll move on to the next topic. Oh, emerging mobility devices ordinance. Yeah, if you want to handle that one? Did I find it again?
I'm here to talk about emerging mobility devices. And we titled it that because we kind of want to incorporate all kind of possible. We don't really know what's going to be out there, and we don't even, I can't keep up with them now. It's these new technologies these days. And so I think the staff report talks about both Bruce and I have been contacted over the past year a few times. I get them emails and calls by companies that are, approaching us about bringing scooters mainly into town. But we also have individuals that want to use these types of devices, and we don't want to limit that type. At least that hasn't been discussed yet. And so our Canon Beach TSP transportation system plan, which is currently at the Planning Commission, it's also been a recommendation throughout that for the last year or so. And so they said, what you need to do is manage these and have some policies in place. We were going to wait till the TSP got through, but I think this became a hot topic item. And so we wanted to go ahead and get some policies in place. I've drafted a ordinance. I looked around and found a few out there that are in place. And then what I didn't want to really recreate the wheel or have a huge one. I wanted to just kind of incorporate it within what's already in our ordinances and try to work from there. And ran this by Ashley and then a couple other community members and got some feedback, and that's what's before you tonight for a work session. Tonight, just a recommendation. We don't have any recitals or anything yet. We're just kind of putting that first draft together and wanted to get some feedback before we move it forward. So let me know if you have any questions or anything.
I noticed you cleaned up a little bit on where you can take bikes and other vehicles. That was good. We've had a input on this from Deb, and I understand that it's not really necessary to define everything. What we're talking about is restricting the rental of anything motorized in town. And so just to be clear, that's what we're doing. We're restricting the rental part of it. So if somebody has one of these devices personally, they can still use it.
Right.
As long as they follow the other laws, like not on the sidewalks. So,
and tried to, it's a great point, Sam. I tried to kind of incorporate that into the bicycle operating rules that's already in existence, clean that up a little bit. But yeah, I think, if you look at those bicycle operating rules and what we've done, that I think they're pretty good. You also, one of the things I wanted to mention, the way I've put 10, 12, 27, the prohibition of the rental of emergency. You'll notice that I put to be utilized on rights of way or public property within the Canon Beach is prohibited. So I did not specifically define, the beach. For instance, I know that I think Parks Department does not, I don't think they like the electric single mono wheels or something, or I've heard that that's frowned upon or against their rules. So didn't really call out that kind of thing, but I think that we could say it's within the city limits and we could go that way. But if we want to be more specific, I can do that as well.
I don't see any reason to.
I really like this being incorporated into existing code and chapters rather than a standalone separate one.
Thank you.
It's better.
Jeff, can you tell me, it would be line 6 through 10, right about in the middle, you're talking about vehicles that go greater than 20 miles per hour. How did you come up with that number? Because that sounds kind of fast.
Yeah, that's saying not over that. So we would, that's what we would define, and we would limit that. And then anything that goes over that, I think that would come under the police department saying we wouldn't allow that. I define this emerging as those that won't not be capable of getting to that over that speed. And so we're limiting anything under 20 miles per hour. The reason I did it that way is just because that's how other communities have done that. Welcome it, Jason, or anyone's feedback on that. But I would think once we get beyond the actual speed limit of the town, we've got other laws in place that deal with that.
I just felt that 20 sounded really pretty fast.
Yeah, I agree.
So could we make it less?
Sure, yeah.
I'd like to see 15.
Jason, how would you judge that? I mean, a kid riding a scooter, can you tell if he's doing 20 or 15?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the radar picks them up. Yeah.
I guess I question it as a bicycle rider. I can go 20 easy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
especially downhill. Where the radars are. Huh? So, and that one kid that has the mono wheel, he can move. Let me tell you, that thing really scoots. So, yeah, I suppose, because if he ran into somebody, that would hurt.
He'd hurt himself too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points to consider?
What about bicycle rentals?
Yeah, I did not, I didn't put that or specify that because I think that we want to encourage bicycle rentals. And
I agree.
And so if that's not clear, I can put in a line saying that those are still, we can put that as a clause. This does not prohibit the rental of bicycles.
Okay. But that'd be human powered, not.
Yeah, exactly. Not the electric type, right? Now, that may be something you guys want to talk about and consider, now or in the future, allowing rentals of motorized bicycles. But
that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Don't want to go there right now, but I just feel like it's already being done. I know with our bike shop that is no longer in existence, was in the past, but I think some of the hotels have, while they may not take money directly, it's part of your room, I suppose.
Yeah.
So they already exist.
I felt that was pretty well covered in the definition of emerging mobility device rental.
Yeah.
So
That's something to consider. If it's a package, the hotel, and you have an electric bike available. I think to me, that's the same as renting the electric device.
good point.
Really, when you go through it again, look at it that way. Just the fact that it's not a rental shop set up on the street, a storefront. It's a rental if being provided by the RBO
Yeah.
Second home rental, any of those rental properties that provide electric bikes, they are renting them, or any other personal mobility.
Yeah.
So let's try to address it.
Okay, I'll ask Ashley on that if we need to expand that at all.
All right.
And then the tricycle beach bikes that get rented currently, do you feel, does the rest of the council feel that this language still allows them to function?
I thought it did.
The only concern is with the speed limit is you'd have to have separate signage throughout town on designated speed for that, because even if they're told, they'll say they didn't hear or they don't know. And so without any type of signage, a judge is going to say, so that would be the only thing where they're saying I was going the speed that traffic was going. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll look at that on the MP mile per hour. It might be we just take that speed out. That's the other alternative, because then it's any motorized of these type of devices that
Has to follow the speed limit.
Yeah.
Is that more of a problem, Jason?
Not necessarily. I mean, it really depends, but we hope they use their common sense.
That's the whole reason I think you're dealing with a lot of minors.
Yeah.
With a lot of these, and they probably like to go as fast as they possibly could.
Depending on what it is as well, other cities have restrictions on the age that you can rent them as well. So
I just want to first and foremost preclude any of those rentals. But what people bring here to use on their own beyond our power to regulate it.
how much regulation do you have on like a power scooter or something like that, or a power skateboard? Well, the same if it's on a skateboard's different, that's, well, they have power skateboards. Sure, yeah. And we do have a sheet that there's regulations on each, however much power they have or horsepower and how fast they can go and whether or not they need to have a helmet on it or not. Yeah. So I'm thinking about Christian sitting on the hill. If a guy's going down the hill, going a little too fast, he's got a power skateboard and he's on his cell phone. And Christian stop him.
He's also drinking too.
Mr. Mayor. You go really fast on your bike. Yeah, no, there's unfortunately, all those things happen all the time.
Yeah.
And you can't be everywhere, but they certainly do stop it when they see it. Okay, I'm just curious. I know that was a side thing from what we're talking about, but it came up, I had to ask. Okay. Good job, Jeff. I think this is a go. Any other questions?
Yes, where can I get the P?
You can always get the P, right?
Yeah, I think that should be a new city vehicle. I can trade it off. I don't know if anybody noticed on Debattia's, she did some research on a bunch of versions. Really cute little round electric vehicle.
It looks just like a P.
Part Volkswagen Bug, part P. Okay, we'll move on to our next item.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Consideration of camping code draft language. Do we have Emily?
Yes, I believe Emily is on.
Okay. Looks like Emily's going to start this one.
Hello, can you hear me? Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about your camping code. As you know, over the last couple of years, there have been a couple of cases as well as a new state law passed. And these have sort of changed the expectations for cities and how they regulate camping on public property. And I'm going to just very briefly summarize the two cases and the state law. So the first case is Martin v. Boise, which obviously came out of Idaho, and went up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And that case held that it violates the U.S. Constitution's 8th Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment to criminalize people experiencing homelessness for essentially camping on public property. The language was involuntarily sitting, lying, and sleeping in public when no alternative shelter was available. That was sort of built on and clarified in a more local case, which was Blake v. Grants Pass, where the court said not only can you not criminally prosecute people experiencing homelessness for camping on public property, but you can also not civilly punish them when there's no alternative shelter available. So the Grants Pass court also went a little further and said that you must allow necessary minimal measures for people experiencing homelessness to keep themselves warm and dry while sleeping. That case is still on appeal to the Ninth Circuit. There's been no activity. The opinion came out about 2 years ago now, and there's been no activity yet in the Ninth Circuit. But it is currently the law because it has not been overturned, and while it's awaiting appeal. So in light of those decisions, the Oregon legislature passed a state law last long legislative session, so a little over a year ago now, which is House Bill 3115. And that essentially codified the principles in those two cases and says that a local law that regulates sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property that is open to the public must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, and manner with regards to persons experiencing homelessness. And that is based on a totality of the circumstances. So it's specific from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And there are other details of the state law that I won't get into now, except that the state law does not go into effect until July 1st, 2023. So that's next year. However, because the state law essentially codifies the principles of the cases, and the cases are currently law, I recommend that you take action before July 1st, 2023, and amend your camping code. So that's sort of the legal background. What you have before you is the result of several conversations I had with the chief, and also we had a meeting with Bruce and the chief and a few other members of city staff. And we came up with some ideas of some objectively reasonable time, place, and manner regulations. I do want to clarify one point, which I think is a little confusing when you hear about the cases. So a city may not essentially ban camping everywhere on public property, but a reasonable time, place, and manner regulation would be to ban camping in, for example, all city parks. So it's not that you must allow some form of it everywhere. You can choose places to prohibit camping, but there must be some place outdoor on public property where people can camp. So we have sort of selected areas where camping would not be allowed within the city. And furthermore, we've also, the draft in front of you requires or prohibits camping between 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on all public property. So I think that's where I'll stop for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to address Mickey's comment about the within 20 feet of a privately owned parcel zone for residential use or within 20 feet of a residential structure regardless of zoning. And her request was to move that to 40. My question, I guess, is the 20 feet something that is sort of taken from other ordinances within other communities, or is this something specific to our community?
Thank you for the question, Counselor. I don't remember if that came from somewhere else, but I think that we can definitely consider raising that to 40 feet. It's sometimes hard for me to answer really specific questions because I'm less familiar with exactly what public property that would leave open. But I don't think that would be a problem. I don't think that would push it over into, not objectively reasonable if that's the way the council wants to go.
I don't have a problem with it changing to 40, but you bring up a good point. Does that create some sort of area where it would be a problem in the future? And I can't speak to that at all.
Do you have any regions that you would see that 40 feet would cause more?
No, I don't have any concern with increasing that at all. I think that was a number that we had put out. But it makes sense, the concern of children in a yard or something like that, absolutely. This isn't something that we deal with down here very often, but we're trying to get ahead of it because every other city's working on it and putting different rules into place. And that's certainly something that we want to get in place, especially since ours was so restricted. But I think that's why we wanted to bring it to a work session to provide discussion and make any changes.
Yeah, I could visualize a couple right of ways that I know of that are undeveloped right of ways that we have throughout town that if it was 40 feet, the right of ways are generally 50 or 60, depending on where you are. You're getting close to one, so it would eliminate that right of way as a possibility. But I'm sure there's plenty of other places. The more we narrow it down, the more you're focusing the possibilities into very specific spots, which could get discovered. It would be almost continuous.
I don't way around that too, that my lieutenant brought up last week on here is putting in on number 2 on street, including planter strips, medians and parking spaces, but also adding city right of way in there. And that would give that buffer zone around residences as well, because there's the city right of way there.
It helped.
So is it intentional that there isn't areas included in here that camping is allowed?
Because there would be so many different options, there would be a list of different places that they could camp. We don't have a specific area, and that hasn't worked in some areas of where people are giving them a place to camp, because there's always going to be no, that's not a good idea. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you would.
I'm thinking specifically of Seaside. And my impression is that it became such a problem in Seaside is that was their last resort.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, where they had moved them, and they're still discussing it. I mean, they just discussed it again last night. Trying to come up with shelter in Seaside that could be managed as well.
I don't hear any objections to extending that 20 feet to 40 feet. It's still somewhat arbitrary, but I think it addresses the concern that's been expressed. How to do that.
Well, I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Should it also be mentioned around schools? Or our Cannon Beach Academy? Because that would have a wider possibility, I would think there.
It'd probably be good to say schools, but it says, well, residential structure. It could just say structure. That would, but it could also say and schools. So yeah, that's a good point, Robin. We only have the one, so it's.
Right.
But.
Thank you.
Okay, and that sounds like that's it for concerns. Let's proceed with what we've got and the comments that we have.
Sounds good. I'll draft up those edits and circulate those.
Great.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Mhm.
Okay, with that, good of the order. Anybody have a point of concern or question? I know we have we don't have any more meetings this month. Kind of amazing.
Something's wrong.
So just on behalf of Nancy, since she's gone already, coffee with the counselor is Monday the
Yeah.
18th.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
I knew something was missing, so there we go. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.